All right, I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Sustainability Commission. Today is Tuesday, October 11th. And Betty, if you would please read the roll.
Alderperson Quigley,
Here.
Commissioner Black,
Here.
Commissioner Champeau,
Here.
Commissioner Gash,
Here.
Commissioner Henry Gillis,
Here.
Commissioner Lawton,
Here.
Commissioner Rakers is excused on vacation.
All right, thank you for that. Next on the agenda, public comment on matters not on the agenda. Comments made during the public comment period shall pertain only to matters under the jurisdiction of the Sustainability Commission. Do we have anybody online with us? Okay, I don't see anybody here in the hall. Any public comments? Going twice, offered 3 times, and then we're going to move on to our action items. Thank you. Under item 3, approval of the September 13th Sustainability Commission meeting minutes. I'll take a motion.
I motion to accept the September meeting minutes.
Thank you. And I can second that. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the minutes from the September 13th meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And the motion carries. Once again, we have commission member introductions. So again, some of you did this not so long ago. We appreciate your patience. My name's John Quigley. This is my second year serving on the City Council. I'm not quite at a full year on the Sustainability Commission, so I recently took over this as one of my duties. In addition to what I do in the city of De Pere here, I'm also a teacher in the Green Bay School District. I teach 5th grade band students, and I think that's about it. I'll leave it right there. Anybody want to go next? Go right down the line.
My name is Betty Sellenheim. I am the Administrative Assistant for Public Works and the Recording Secretary for this body. I have a background in forest recreation, water resources with a minor in soil science, and I've been with the city about 3.5 years now on this commission since I started.
Thank you.
I'm Emily Henry Gillis. This is my 3rd meeting. I have a bachelor's in ecology with a minor in chemistry and a master's in environmental science and policy. And I've worked in both the public and the private sector doing sustainability-ish stuff.
My name is Janie Black. I am a teacher in De Pere. I'm also the founder of Green Schools Rock. It's a program that empowers schools to take sustainable actions. I'm a Green Schools mentor to youth in Wisconsin and also in the state of Illinois, working with youth to turn their schools green.
Thank you.
I'm Randall Lawton. I have a MBA in international business. Ran a corporation in the city of De Pere for 45 years. I've been involved in a number of environmental activities over this past 50 years. And I joined the commission in 2019, I think in June, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm Cindy Champeau. I work at a local manufacturing company. I have a degree in hotel and restaurant management. My background is I used to work for a local chamber of commerce for 8 years and a local government as well with the Public Works Department, and I'm looking forward to being on this commission.
My name is Renee Gash. I am one of the original members of the commission with Randall and folks. My background is in agriculture, and I work for a sustainable agriculture organization that helps farmers plant trees on their land as a climate mitigation solution and as a carbon capture solution. So my big priorities are climate, and I also have a background in public media and communications work. So.
Scott Thorson, Director of Public Works for the City of De Pere. I got a Bachelor of Science degree in Civil Engineering from Michigan Tech, licensed Professional Engineering in the state of Wisconsin. I've been the Public Works Director for, actually on Halloween, it'll be 17 years with the city. Actually, since this commission formed, I've been the staff liaison, for getting information for this group put together. Betty and I as a team, between her and I, be working with the commission as we move forward on items, and welcome to all our new members.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate that. Next, we're going to go to an update on the sustainability strategy score sheet. Scott, do you want to take that one?
So at our last commission, we brought this up to kind of talk about the sustainability strategic score sheet. Basically, what this is, when this commission first formed, one of the first things the commission did, we became part of the Green Tier Legacy Community Program through the DNR for the state of Wisconsin. And one of the things we had to do is pass a resolution, that the commission was one of the first recommendations they made, and the council approved to basically join the Green Tier Community Program. One of the requirements is once we joined as a member, we had to complete a sustainability strategy score sheet. And what this does, it establishes a baseline of, as you look at it, was in your packet, of different activities throughout the city and operations and citywide, things we've done that are sustainable type items. So what you'll see in there, when we first established this back in 2000, I believe it was 19, we came up with a base score, went through everything, worked with the commission on it, kind of talking about where we're at that point for the different activities we've done and the points we've accumulated. And what that score does is the DNR establishes the baseline of sustainable type activities the community is doing. And what the objective for Green Tier, what they want to do is they want all the members that are participating in, there's membership statewide. It's through all kinds of counties and municipalities through all over the state. And we meet quarterly, to talk about sustainable activities and everything going on, what people are doing. We have different, presentations, talk about ideas, and give each other ideas on, sustainable items. But one of the things we talk about on a regular basis, and they're actually going to get more reporting requirements, is we are supposed to try to do a few of these items that we have no score on this sheet on an annual basis, because we want to try to increase our score annually, because the higher our score gets, that means the more sustainable items that we're doing. And I believe, I don't think of if you add out all the points of the strategy score sheet, and trust me, I got to read here. Should have brought my glasses. I think we're 653 total maximum points if you scored everything, and we're at 128. So what we want to try to do is increase that score every year. And what we did as a group, we kind of picked several projects a couple years ago, and then COVID hit, things we wanted to do to actually improve our score. And I actually listed that, for the commission, the tasks that we kind of wanted to try to complete to increase our score. We have not actually done any of it. The only thing actually internally we did complete most of bullet point, the first one, with the annual government fleet use of motor fuels. We got that going on. The other several bullet points, we have not did any work on it. I mean, I can tell you right now, the Bird City, Wisconsin community, I have done research and things we got to do. Unfortunately, other priorities came up, and then, like I said, with COVID, we did not get it done. So what we need to try to do is get back on track and focus on these projects, because ultimately, annually, we got to submit an annual report, which I'll share with the group as that requirements come out in the near future, and we want to accomplish these tasks. So really, this was just kind of an update. I know a couple of commissioners have been here for a while, so they kind of understand it. This is primarily for the newer members to kind of understand where we're at. And one of the things they talk about, we'll talk a little bit with our ordinance, is a work plan. So some of the items we want to be doing is a work plan should accomplish some of these items on a score sheet to try to increase our score. I guess that's just probably a long summary on it, but that's kind of where we're at. So I guess if people don't have any questions, I can try to answer them for you.
Appreciate that.
Why don't you explain where all the items came from originally?
Okay.
I don't think you did that, or I didn't.
The items on the score sheet are what we came up with.
No, where the score sheet came from. Who created that?
The DNR created that. So we were actually, what it was a spreadsheet. When we became a member, the DNR and that body created the score sheet of the different items on there and tasked each member to, kind of determine, have you done it, have you not, and come up with that baseline score. And the whole, like I said, the whole objective is what the DNR wants to do. And actually, they're going through a process right now. Actually, they're doing a little bit because there's a business group that does it, and then there's the community groups like we're in that do it. And they're actually doing a pilot program of how we can get better at reporting because, we haven't done it, and a lot of other members have not done it. So they want to get back on track and reporting because it really ultimately, sustainability is taken across not only state but the country. They want to see, improvements, in each of these members' communities, things they're working on. And some of the things we may do may not even be on here. But, they want to see us tackle some of these issues that are on that sheet.
If you study it, it's a pretty pervasive list of things that you would come to mind, but kind of well beyond what I could have or we could have come up with on our own. Just throwing darts at the wall and saying, how could we be more sustainable?
And one of the things I can add on that, the annual report, that we'll submit, and based on your comment, Randall, is that if we do things that are not on this list, there are initiatives that this group and the city as a whole takes on throughout the year. These are items that we can definitely, share and report. Because one of the things we do quarterly when we meet for the members that do come in a meeting, we got to give a 1 minute topic. What are the things going on in your community? Things you're looking at, initiatives you're trying to doing, things you accomplished, and some of the things. And it's kind of neat, kind of networking with other communities what they're doing, because some of the things may not be on this list, but they're tackling that are sustainable type items.
And then Scott, just to be clear, in the packet on page number 9, where it talks about some of the bullet points there, calculate the government fleet use and the inventory wetlands, those are things that are being handled by city staff, or there's kind of in the works?
Well, that is, some of these things were, some of the commissioners were volunteered to take it on. I'll give you an example. We had a commissioner resign that was working on the inventory, all paid services. This commissioner was from, worked at St. Norman, so she had volunteers to help. I kind of brought forward, I told the commission I'd work on these, the certification as a Bird City, Wisconsin community, because a lot of the information that's really knowledge internally that, it may be tough for a commissioner to look at because you may not be aware of that. But other items that, as we tackle it, move forward, once we decide as a group what we want to be doing moving forward, we're going to be looking at a lot of the commissioners to take on these projects, as a work plan, and work with, doing the research and stuff, and then bring it back to the group to kind of talk about, and then, do the work plan. It can't be we don't have the resources of staff to tackle all of them on its work plan. The intent would be the majority of the stuff would be, tackled by individual commissioners.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I know that, I think I've introduced 3 to 4 of these items so far, and I've met a lot of, resistance to the 4 that I've put forward. And I don't know, I'm just trying to figure out how do we make progress on this, because so far, the things that we've put forward, there hasn't been a lot of support for. So I think we need to recommit to actually making progress on this document. This is kind of our guiding roadmap, and if we say no to everything, we're never gonna increase our score. So I think the one item I'm feeling promising about the under electric vehicles. I've heard that there are some hybrid police cars on order. I think that would be one area. I'm hoping, I don't know if it's 2% of the fleet, but I think that's a start, and hopefully we can earn a few points there. But I'll be honest, with the resistance that I've gotten to the first couple that I introduced, I guess I'm looking for more direction on how to actually get some of these things done.
Okay, thank you. What's that? Okay, go ahead.
And then one of the things we'll be talking about right after this is, to your point, Renee, and a couple others, we're taking a step back and we're going to talk about the ordinance and where does this group want to go and that sort of thing. A lot of it's going to be based off of, to move forward, we'll talk a little bit is meeting frequencies, doing different things, meet more often. The commissioners taking on some of these projects is they're really to keep moving and making progress instead of being stagnant. So hopefully that's what we get out of tonight's meeting after on the next couple agenda items, to kind of talk about the work plan and quite honestly, other sustainable initiatives that have been brought forward and may not even be on this list. So.
Do you think there's staff buy-in for this list? How supportive do you think staff are of these items?
Well, the intent of we'll talk about it a little bit. It's really not. It's not going to be. When I mentioned earlier, we need to take a step back. We're going to be a liaison, Betty and I, to you folks here. The makeup of the commission is going to kind of be, you folks volunteered for. Alderperson Quigley's appointed, and then, by the ordinance, we have our one staff person that is appointed with Eric Rakers. So, ultimately it comes down what the majority of the commission wants. What we'll all be doing is kind of guiding, and one of the things that, as we move forward, and I sat down with our mayor and our city administrator, and that's part of the talk about our ordinance here coming up, is, what can we do? What does the commission want to do to keep things moving forward? And that's really citywide, not the operations. And, we're here to help guide you. I can tell you up front, even the mayor, the conversation I had with him yesterday, a lot of these tasks and initiatives and stuff on the work plan, the folks on the commission here have to be the ones that are doing the work on it. We'll be doing the guiding and stuff like that, because if we rely on staff, and and Mayor and I had this discussion, we don't have the resources to do it, and we're all busy. I heard that, everybody went through, their background today. We're all extremely busy, and this is a volunteer group, but it's going to take some time on the commissioner's part, and some of these things that you're passionate about on the sustainability initiatives, and work on them, and hopefully we can get through that. The resistance is really going to be your commission here. My focus is, I've been redirected that we have to kind of guide, and Betty and I can do what we can to help you, but it's really what the commission want. And the other thing is talking about with the mayor and the city administrator, you brought up the no idling ordinance, is some of the times, I'm learning that we got to bring ideas and recommendations, for example, to the council to get their support. They may say, okay, bring it back to commission, create an ordinance, create a resolution, and bring it forward. And I understand the frustration because you've had a couple of good items that we initiated, and we're going to talk about it a little bit later on the clear air ordinance. Some of those stay stagnant. So really tonight's meeting is we set this special meeting up because we really want to regroup as a commission, look at the ordinance, because this ordinance was, maybe I'll stop there because it's really an item on the ordinance, and we can go into that in further detail. So does anybody have any questions on the score sheet? Otherwise we can dive into the
I
other
have a
stuff.
lot of
So.
questions on the score sheet.
Okay,
They're not for right now. I need to develop them more.
okay, which
But
is
just
fine.
looking at it, yeah, I've got.
There's a lot to digest there, absolutely.
lots of questions.
I would like to address Renee's comment before because, again, I don't want to speak for everybody on the council. There are 8 of us that are voting, but my own experience with it is if it's a voluntary program, if it doesn't cost any money, then we're getting buy-in from the council. But the 2 things that seem to make it harder to get through is if we're spending money, we have to ask the council for any financial. And the other thing is, again, voluntary is great. If we legislate something like the clean air, the no idling ban, then it's harder because we get the police department or we get whoever is going to be involved in enforcement. So in one sense, I think there is there's respect for, and we want to see the commission do something, but I also see that they want us as a group to be willing to do more of the legwork and to give them very specific proposals. So in that way, I sense the frustration. I feel like we're kind of stuck at the same point again. Go ahead.
The city has got to make some decisions about what they want to have as a sustainability program here. And to hear both of you talk about the fact that money's going to stop it, staff time's going to stop it, I'm out of here. You're going to have to change your tune about what it is that this city's going to be doing over the next 10, 20, 30 years, how it's going to invest its time and its money to get this job done. Because this isn't a bunch of volunteer people making this happen. We maybe can support it to happen. We can attend events that support it, but you're going to have to do it. You at the council and you as the city representing the city employees, they're the ones that are going to have to do this. Or we're going to have to hire people to help us do this. Correct. And we need to hear that you're ready to do that, or I don't think that it makes any sense for me to continue on this commission. I literally have to hear that. And I'm now an understanding that the latest survey that the city did, the citizenry of De Pere is supporting sustainability in a serious way. So I think that the paradigm shift's going to happen there, not telling us to go out and do a lot of work and do this. We're not engineers. We're here to make decisions and think about things and create consensus and support. And Renee, to your point, one of the points on here was the idling. And yes, it's taken too damn long, but I think we're going to vote on it tonight. And I have suspicions we're going to vote to follow that course and watch it for a period of time. And that's maybe the right place for commission members to because I look at that as a test case of what can be done in the community and how to make change, because it's all about change. And when we ask people to make change doesn't happen very easy. It's very difficult to get done, and we've got to figure out how to help this community learn to make change.
Thank you. I hear what you're saying. Yeah, go ahead.
And if I can just add, I did, when I mentioned earlier talking to the mayor, one of the things is, and I mentioned earlier here in the same discussion I had with the mayor, you're right. I mean, somewhat the staff holdup is we don't have the resources. And the mayor, and like the city of Green Bay, when they first got going, their first couple of years with their sustainability commission, they created a position to assist and work on these projects and do different things. I told the mayor that's the way we have to go. He's not in disagreement with it. He's basically told me it won't, because we're through the budget process now, but the next budget process, that, be something that he'd be looking at taking forward to fund, the resources to do some of the stuff.
That's
and then, potentially start funding some of these other things, because really a lot of this is citywide initiatives, and it's part of the discussion we're going to have tonight, what this group wants to do. And, we can bring forward, like you said, the concerns you just mentioned, that the city needs to do a lot of it and create a position, do different things. That feedback, we can bring back to the mayor, would be part of the minutes in this discussion, because there's a lot of good discussion we have here, but you need the resources to make a lot of these go. And, and we don't have them internally right now the way it's set up, but the mayor said he would look at it definitely in the future.
Yeah, and I did mention that to Mayor Boyd and Larry Dilo over the summer. I met with them and asked them, could we get a sustainability manager for the city of De Pere to work on some of these projects? And they flat out told me no. So I think, we need more buy-in from the city. We need more support from the folks who actually have power. So
I appreciate those comments. That's all. That's good. We need to hear it. Anything else specifically to the score sheet? Otherwise, we can go to the next agenda item, which is how do we make our our decisions more impactful? How do we get the job done that we're all interested in doing the same thing, but moving forward? And again, there was a proposal that was sent to you about having meetings every other month and then possibly subcommittees or working groups. Since then, Scott has got some extra comments about that after talking to the city attorney.
Sure. One of the things is when this commission was, and everybody looks at the ordinance, that was created as initial first take for the new members here. Casey Nelson was the alderperson at the time, and he brought it forward to create this commission. I believe a lot of it came from Green Bay because Green Bay just started their commission. And, you know, the intent is when we first took the first crack at it, you know, that's how the makeup, the setup, and the discussions we were having. And kind of to some of the existing commissioners, you know, concerns, the intent tonight was to really look at the ordinance, bring it back, are the changes that we need to be doing to the ordinance. And in the packet, I had a couple different things that was, you know, brought up in the past. One is the frequency of the meetings. The minimum, you know, amount according to the ordinance was to actually meet minimum quarterly. So we had set it up, the schedule will be March, June, September, and December. And you can have special meetings. A lot of times, you know, to work on projects and different things. We've had several of those over the last several years. But it's often tough to create a special meeting when we're all busy and you have, you know, different schedules. So I thought, well, maybe we create a meet monthly. Most boards, like the park board, is mostly citizen members. They're, you know, the ordinance says monthly. Talking to the city attorney, she says we don't really need to change that because it's minimum quarterly, but maybe we suggest, okay, why don't you create a calendar and you plan, you know, Tuesdays of the month like we're doing right now, which is really just before finance committee. And part of the reason for that is for the fact that it's televised and we got to meet in here. And it was one of the time slots when we first started this meeting to set it up. So one of the things on the frequency, if we put a calendar together, is that we can say, okay, 12 months of the year, we're meeting on these Tuesdays, you know, 5:30 to 7. You can all put it in your personal calendars. I mean, some meetings you may miss because of personal, you know, lives and that sort of thing. And if there's no items to work on, then we just cancel the meeting. Green Bay does that now. You know, we can, you know, we would get out and like last week would say, Betty would get out and say, we have nothing on the agenda, you know, unless any commissioner has any, we would just cancel the meeting. In addition, you know, if the commission wants to even meet more frequently, because we got a lot of topics, like I'll give you an example. We had trying to think of the resolution that actually you brought up, Renee. We met many months over that and finally brought forward to council with a lot of special meetings. So that is one of the things, you know, to talk about, because having more additional meetings and working, you know, that may help get, you know, moving on a lot of things. The second one I had originally brought up was create subcommittees. And actually, you know, I've attended a couple of Green Bay Commission meetings to see how their format goes. And actually, I just listened to their, went on and reviewed their televised meeting from last month to kind of see what they're still doing. And what they created, they call, I thought it was subcommittees, but it's actually work groups. And what I wanted to do is if there was individuals we had tasks to do or initiatives we want to work on, Renee, picking you a little bit, is that she would take, kind of charge, and a great one she did take charge of was the plastic bags, and what we do with them and having drop-offs. She did a lot of that on her own, but she took hold of that task and brought it, through this commission, and eventually the council approved. But that particular commissioner would be assigned that. We report back, and that's one of the things Green Bay does on their monthly agendas. They have an update from, we'll call it plastic bag recycling. And Renee would bring that up as, a kind of topic where we're at, here we go. We'd have discussion as a group and go forward. So we can't create numerous people on the subcommittee or work group, because one of the things, and this is for the new members, we have what we call a open meeting requirements. So if we ever have a quorum and it was not posted, we get in violations with the state law on having open meetings because this is a body of the city of De Pere. And so the city attorney kind of highly recommended that if you have these individual tasks, have one of the commissioners say this is an initiative they're going to work on. They may reach out to, get information. They may meet with their neighbors. Even if they, met with one other commissioner, which is fine because once we get pushing three, we get close to that issue with the open meeting requirements. So that was her kind of recommendation. It's kind of different what I have in the the memo before you, because trying to make sure what we're doing is legal, and that was one of the things that came up. It's kind of, we talked a little bit earlier, one of the commissioners' emails is a great example. If Randall's had times he's shared stuff, we can't email to the entire group because, again, if, believe it or not, you're not meeting, but, the open record, we start responding as a group, we're violating that because it's not posted. So, if you have information you want to share or ideas, the best thing is, email Betty and I, and then what we will do is take, if you have information, we send it out to the whole group, but it's blank copy, which it doesn't allow you guys to, talk about this in this item or this initiative type of a thing. So, it's probably clear as mud, but these are some of the legal aspects, being this is a body of De Pere, we kind of got to watch, so.
At least without changing
No,
having
Yep,
the city council change the ordinance.
correct.
Okay. So if we can separate those two things, one is how frequently are we going to meet, and then what do we do with either the tasks or the work groups without violating the open meeting law? Can I start by making a motion that we meet, or we put on our calendar to meet monthly, and then if it turns out that there's not enough stuff to fill an agenda or to make it worth our time, we have the option to cancel meetings at some point going forward. Go ahead.
Would you want to make that for the, starting in 2023? Because then you can do the whole calendar, January, or you want to start, the next month? We have a meeting in December already, that's the plan. So I mean, I don't know, I mean, it's, just throw that out there, so.
Okay. I would say starting immediately.
Okay.
Because you said earlier, if we can find things to do, there's no shortage of things that we need to do that need to be worked on. The thing is, sitting here in a meeting where I think some of us feel less, powerless maybe is not the right word, but I feel like it's a slow-moving process. So if we can have individuals that are working on tasks or making phone calls or getting things done, I would be willing to start next week. And again, it's my motion, so first I need a second, and then we can discuss it, and then we'll either vote it up or down. So
I would like to second that.
thank you for that. Okay, any discussion on the proposal to have monthly meetings starting in November? Go ahead.
And we would keep it on these Tuesdays like we're doing now?
I would suggest that.
Okay.
Yeah. Before the
Finance.
Personnel finance meeting, yeah.
Yeah, my only feedback is the second Tuesday in November is election day, so it may be,
So starting in
I will not
December,
be there.
going into next year, yeah.
yeah, some of us work the polls and
Thank
things
you,
like that.
and
so,
I will be too, yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so I'd like to revise my motion, which is, we'll go with the December meeting as scheduled, and then starting in January, we would go to monthly. And then part of the rules of order thing, now I've changed my original motion, so as the seconder, are you okay with that version of it?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so now discussion about that meeting. And Scott, again, for clarity for me, maybe we as a group can't make this decision, but we're going to ask the council for permission to meet monthly? Is that what you're saying?
No, we don't, because actually the ordinance allows you to have the special meetings, and what we're gonna do.
We can have more than that.
calendar, So it's already there.
We have to at least
More
meet
than
quarterly.
four.
Got it, okay, all right. So again, other discussion one way or another on the calendar? Go ahead.
And then just for all the commissioners, this will be the plan, monthly meetings. We'll still, and we'll call it, like, this is called a special meeting. The other ones will be the regular meetings, but if we decide, okay, in 2 weeks we need to meet again because there's some urgent item, we'll just call it a special meeting.
Okay,
So you can still do that as well.
okay.
Yeah, the only thing it says is not less than 4 times a
Correct.
week. So we
Correct.
can meet every day if we want.
Correct.
One small part of my brain knew that, I just wanted to say it out loud just to make sure I'm understanding it. Okay. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of meeting monthly, starting December and then proceeding into next year, say aye.
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 All those opposed? And that motion carries. Thank you. And so the next part of this kind kind of reinventing ourselves, is if we can't call them subcommittees, Scott, are you saying we can have one council member or one commission member, one person with sustainability, but then we're basically working independently until the next time the group meets together? Okay, we can meet one-on-one, but we can't meet in subgroups bigger.
That would be my recommendation based off the discussion with the city attorney. And I don't know if that actually has to be, I'd have to verify that because some of you are already doing it now, and I mentioned what Renee was doing with the plastic bag. So really, I was bringing it up as part of having a subcommittee on it. So since we can't do it, I don't think it's really an ordinance change. It would be just something we kind of tackle here. And then one of the things is, and Randall brought it up, as time moves on and say there's more resources the city has, and some of that comes, back on city staff. So I think there's really nothing we would do because really what we wanted to talk about, is there anything in the ordinance we want to change? And I thought, well, that would be something we would put in there. But since we can't do it, it doesn't really matter.
Right, so without changing the ordinance, I guess my question is, how do we assign those? Or, I would like people to volunteer themselves and say, here's a project that I'm passionate about, and somehow we need to coordinate who's doing what kinds of tasks.
My suggestion would be when we have these tasks and we bring them forward as part of the work plan, we you have the discussion here as a group, and then kind of determine, because there might be an initiative that just comes up, as far as that you want to be put on an agenda, and then we bring it forward and let's say Janie's going to come in because I got this going on or whatever else, or and we talk about it as a group, and then then you may take the lead on it. I think you let the group kind of decide as these items come through an agenda, and kind of through the discussion determine who wants to take the lead and what resources and help they need.
So I don't know if there's a need for a motion or if we're not necessarily doing anything specific related to that.
So am I understanding that if we ever want to talk about anything with more than yourself, you have to come to this meeting and have that conversation? Unless you go through Scott or Betty. You can
Actually,
communicate that way
Yeah.
via email. But conversation-wise, we can't do that?
That's not how I understand it. So, and I can check with the city attorney. Any one of us can have a conversation one-on-one. One of the things the open meeting law is concerned about is they have what's called a rolling quorum. So if I have a private conversation with you and then with you, and if I get all the votes lined up before we have something on the agenda at the meeting, that's the illegal activity. But if I'm working with any one of you and we have a conversation about things, that's fine. It's just that I can't go down the line and try to influence decisions one way or another.
I understood it that we can't, like, 4 of us can't meet though to talk, right?
On a particular sustainable type item. But if you're out and about, say y'all happen to meet one of at farmer's market, for example, and you're not talking anything that's sustainability, you're talking about your personal life or anything like that, there's nothing to really act. That's not considered that. It's items that we would talk here as a group, is kind of the issue.
If it's not a private conversation and it's less than a quorum, is I think the area of concern.
Okay.
You could tell me if I'm wrong and kind of along those lines, I think that any one of us can send an email to the group and say, here's great information, here's something you can know about. The concern with open meetings is that if you start to hit reply all, I think this is a terrible idea, I think it's a good idea, then it seems like we're having the meeting in email, or we're having it out of the context of a scheduled, item that's on the agenda. But again, if that's not clear, I can certainly talk to Kristen Johnson, who's our city attorney, or we can get clarity on it. But we got to talk to each other. We got to work through this stuff. And I think it's that fear of, it's like, okay, who can I talk to? I did talk to our city administrator, who's Larry Delo, and it's like, I want to talk to Renee and have a conversation. Legally, can I do that? Because as a city council member, it's like, yeah, you can talk. It's just don't do the business of the meeting outside of the meeting, the formal, something like this. Okay.
Exactly.
Just like to point out the irony that
Yeah.
our
America
formal
wants to
meetings
hear.
aren't really attended. So I don't know. I feel like we're a little bit paralyzed by these rules that you're putting forward when folks could come to this meeting, but
Right.
that's not how they choose
You
to
examine
participate.
how organizations and groups function in an innovative way to get things done. This ain't it. There's But it is what it is because this is state law. This isn't even,
Right.
I don't think.
And again, we have good people
This
here.
isn't our local
And you're
laws.
here because you want to be, so let's get some stuff done. I think it's, sorry if we're beating a dead horse there. Okay, anything else on that topic about reorganizing or anything we do without changing the ordinance? Okay, go ahead.
Really, the intent for the commission was to, especially for those that have been on for some time, and for reviewing the ordinance, are there changes that need to be made because there may be something other than the open meetings law we talked about just a couple minutes ago, but anything in the ordinance that you want changed because you feel maybe we're hand tied or things we need to add to kind of start moving on things and promoting. That's really what the discussion is, because unfortunately it's not fair to the new members here because they haven't really been involved, but for and Randall and a little bit for you, John, is that, you've been to a few meetings, and is there anything that this ordinance is really holding us back? And really the frequency of the meeting, I think, is part of it because you don't meet enough, and we talked about how we work through that. But is there anything really else that, that we want to look at changing? Or if there's anything, if there, if it's fine the way it is, and we talked about how the meeting frequency, then we can just keep it as is and move on.
I guess I'm curious if the wording in here reflects what we're actually doing. Like, all members shall have demonstrated interest. Oh, not that. What do I want?
Where's that at?
Maybe I'm reading it wrong. All members shall have demonstrated interest in environmental stewardship, sustainable business practices, development or technology, green buildings and design, renewable energy, energy efficient transportation, and recycling and waste management.
Is that from the original ordinance?
Yeah, it says
Oh, she's talking
commission composition.
Yep, commission composition.
Okay.
So it's a list of, but it's an or, this or that or this.
Yep.
Not necessarily all inclusive.
I don't think I read it right. And then I read it out loud.
Welcome to public meetings. So I hear stuff coming out of my mouth, and it's like, oh, I don't think I said that the way I wanted to say that. Okay. So if we can, let's go to the next agenda item, which is considering possible action on the clean air ordinance. So again, there is an ordinance that's been proposed. It came through this commission, was that June of 22?
Yep.
Okay. It was not unanimous at that time, so we did have some dissenting voices, but still, we brought it to the Common Council at the July council meeting. And at that meeting, I got a whole list of concerns and I guess what-if scenarios where the council members said, we're not ready to support it yet. And so in your packet, it starts on page 24, I think. But it's that list of things that, I'll read some of it out here. Reasonable exception is where the Clean Air Initiative will not be enforced. If there's severe weather, if people want to run their air conditioner, their heater, emergency vehicles, commercial vehicles. I got the sense from the city council that we hadn't thought through all of these possibilities, so it was just going to be impossible to enforce. And then we have this document from Oshkosh. We have several other communities that have got a clean air ordinance on the books. And it's all doable. I mean, if you make exceptions for the reasonable exceptions, and we can talk about any one of those points, that's okay. But again, from the clean air thing specifically, it was if there's an ordinance and if there's legislation and we expect the police department to enforce it, there was not buy-in from the council there. And so my point in bringing this back today is if we can, step one is education and getting community partners. Step two is if we have a program that's up and running, there can be voluntary enforcement. We can say, here's a brochure, here's talking points, here's why you should be shutting your vehicle off. And then if we can get steps 1 and 2 in place, then I think to go back to the council at a future point and say, we've been doing this for 3 years, we've made this much of an impact, but we need to have a greater impact. I think that would be an easier sell at that time. But again, part of this was if we could have working groups or do a subcommittee or something like that. So there's a little bit of I'm spinning my wheels, and maybe it's It's either my project or Renee's project next, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I was the one who originally proposed this, primarily because I live next to a school district, and every day I watch parents idle for 30 minutes outside my house, and have been frustrated that I feel like I can't take my daughter for a walk while it's school pickup time because so many SUVs are idling. And now I walk my daughter to Dickinson every day, and every day we just inhale a cloud of exhaust. Trying to drop my daughter off from school. So I really want us to be envisioning what an idle-free city might look like in De Pere. And I think the reason why I proposed this was, well, one, it was on our score sheet as a recommended practice to have a limit that poses a limit of no more than 5 minutes at any given idling time. When we first discussed it, we had talked about maybe sending it to the lawyers so that we could get a very clear ordinance to look at, so we had actual language and we could think through some of these exceptions. And instead of it going to the lawyer, it went to city council instead, which is not technically what we voted on. And I think we need to be careful of that because taking proposals to the city council, we need to be a little bit more organized about how we present things. If we just send them a proposal that they can easily shoot down because they don't think the community will support it, we're never going to get anywhere. But if we send them a proposal and we ask community members to come speak in favor of it, then council members know that this isn't just the Sustainability Commission, but there is wider support for this. And that, ultimately the voters who they're accountable to are the ones who are encouraging city council members to adopt this stuff instead of the commission. So I'm disappointed at the process because I think we had voted on something and then something else happened, and then it's coming back that there wasn't support on the council. And I think that's, that makes a lot of sense because we didn't do what we were planning to do to discuss these issues before we brought it to the council. So at this point, I feel like at this point, we don't have much other choice because now the council is already set against it. And if we try to bring it back, it's going to be pointless. The one concern I have about the education campaign is that it feels like a lot of times when we try to do something a little bit bolder, the answer is we can't do that, but we can have an education campaign instead. And I think education campaigns are good. We want to encourage individuals to change their practices and adopt more sustainability. But education campaigns are also a lot of work. And the results, you're only going to convince maybe a few hundred people to change their practices. Whereas an ordinance, it's less work to create the infrastructure, and you're going to have much wider adoption. And in terms of education, I'm looking at our original ordinance that created this commission, and there's not, the word education isn't even in the ordinance. The first item in this list is advise the mayor and common council with regard to policies. So it's concerning to me that we're being told that education is our only option when that's not even in the ordinance. And we have plenty of educational institutions in De Pere. We have a library programming board that could do a sustainability series. We have schools that can do sustainability series. So I just, I want us to think beyond education and beyond educating individual community members on how they can change their habits and start thinking about how do we create a culture in De Pere that is centered on sustainability? How do we create widespread impact that's actually going to draw down some of our emissions so that we're actually making an impact on the climate? And I think, there's only one group in De Pere that can pass policy. There are hundreds of groups that can do education, but only the city council and the folks who work at the city of De Pere have the authority and the power to create policy. And I think we are passing the buck a bit if we always miss the opportunity to pass policy and substitute it with education and individual community behaviors instead of community-wide policies that are going to have a real impact on sustainability. So I'm not opposed to this change that Alder Quigley has proposed, but I do think we could improve the process and we could think bigger than education campaigns in the future.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, suggestions about the ordinance itself or the process, or? Yeah.
I mean, I've done a lot of outreach and education on sustainability type issues. And I mean, I agree with Renee that you don't see changes with just education and outreach. You see the early adopters get on board because that's just what they do, no matter what it is, whether it's farming, taking care of your house. The late adopters are the ones that end up causing a lot of the problems. And so we do need to force their hand a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
I would just like to share that it's almost like I want to say I agree with everything you're saying, but you're saying a lot. And for me, and I also think what you're saying is you're not totally negating the education piece. What happens with the education piece is you do bring key people on board. You bring moms that never understood what idling does affecting their child, you know, and how idling in front of a school affects the air quality in the school. You have huge organizations that, you know, put that as part of what is a priority for them, working towards greener places for our kids. So to me, the education is it's a key piece, but it's got to be done right. And it's got to be done in a way that you can really track that you're really changing culture. If you're just throwing info out there and you're not changing anything, it doesn't mean anything. But I also, you mentioned something about that it would be pointless to go back and try to get it now because they turned it down. And I just don't believe that. I believe you go again and you try again. Because honestly, I've done public policy, I've been in politics, and that's the way it works. And I just don't think you ever give up. It's so when it's important. But I'm not naive, and I do completely respect everything that you're saying. But I would be the one, because you're always going to have fresh eyes to a project that you've put your heart and soul in. And, you know, that would be like a work group to say, hey, what can we do with this now? This is the remnants.
Right.
What can we do? But Renee, I love it. And I think it's absolutely so important. And I definitely wouldn't want to throw it off the table.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Scott.
If I could just add, at the request of Alderperson Quigley, I mean, they never voted on what was brought before them. There was discussion and concerns at and correct me if I'm wrong, Alderperson Quigley, is that there was discussions and concerns at the council meeting, but Alderperson Quigley, as he saw the discussion, then kind of updated being the representative from the commission, and then recommended that this get referred back to the commission for further discussion, and that's how the council voted and approved. And that's why it's here tonight.
The council did not vote. And there's one piece that's in between there, which is before that council meeting, when it left sustainability, my hope was that the city attorney or somebody would look at it and give us an ordinance that we could vote on. It was an internal decision that rather than the legal department spending time on it, they wanted to know for sure that the council is on board with it. So again, it's kind of this catch-22 is we're not going to spend money until we know that the council's on board, and the council's not going to vote on it if they don't have the exact workings of what the ordinance is and how it might work. So this was my attempt to step back a little bit and refocus the conversation.
And if I could just add on what Alderperson Quigley has stated, one of the things I'm learning with this is with this commission and trying to make sure, we're going in the right direction. And I'll take responsibility as someone, because, we talked about bringing a ordinance here, but what we should have did was have something go to council as a recommendation, coming from the commission to, create an ordinance that, would limit the idling as we've discussed. And then, and that's a step, because we talked internally, the city administrator, the mayor, and our city attorney, and that's moving forward. Any initiative that we bring forward, that's how I'm gonna present it as staff. We need to make a recommendation. Here's, to council, here's what they would like to do and get their support, and then and move forward. And that's what we're doing here, is really to kind of, correct me if I'm wrong, to rehash and further discuss what this group wants to do before we bring it back to council.
Okay. Thank you for that. Any other thoughts, ideas? So then to circle back to a previous conversation, Scott, as you understand it, would it be okay if I take this clean air initiative, at least my version of it, and I can work on getting some people together, get the stakeholders involved, and try to implement that? It's not an official action of this commission yet, but then hopefully I would have something to bring back and report at the December meeting. Does that seem reasonable?
I would suggest probably, you and, Alderperson, I'm sorry, you get Alderperson and Commissioner Gash, and I've been calling your first name because I gotta learn your last name, but the Commissioner Gash, maybe the two of you kind of,
Yep.
because then we're not
Compare
an open
notes.
meeting, but, but since it was her idea, work together, you as a representative for the council, and then, Commissioner Gash is with her, what she wants to do, and then we can bring it further for discussion in December.
Thank you. Okay, can we move ahead? Next is future agenda items. Any possible things we'd like to see on the agenda? Go ahead.
So can we just back up just one step?
Sure, of course.
Because we had it was an action item under 5, considered possible
Okay.
action on a clean air ordinance. What I would suggest doing was be making kind of a, motion, just what you said.
Or
you
can
wanted
we
to do,
table it?
or refer it back to, yes, we'll table it to table the December meeting, yes.
Okay. And I don't know how we need a motion?
Make a motion to table. Once we table, then there's no further discussion, so.
Okay, thank you. I would entertain such a motion,
I'll make a motion to table.
and I would second that. All those in favor of tabling any action on the clean air ordinance, say aye.
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 All those opposed? Okay, so nothing happens between now and December, officially. We ready to move ahead? Future agenda items? And I guess I can do this myself, or if it's possible to just go back through our minutes of the last 2 meetings. I feel like there was a list of 27 wonderful ideas at the last meeting, all that are possible, not necessarily work groups, but things that any individual could say, I want to adopt a storm grade, I want to do something with natural plantings. I think there's a lot of good things out there. I don't know, is just creating that list, is that enough to get it on the agenda, Scott? Or are there loopholes we have to jump through? Are there?
So is the intent to actually, we had a discussion here, but are you looking at, there's 2 things. You got the initiatives that may be on the sustainability score sheet we talked about, and there's initiatives outside of that. Are you looking at to kind of look at potential projects that the commission wants to work on, for 2023? And it's kind of like, we go back, we picked those 4 or 5 items on the sustainability score sheet. We had everybody have ideas, and I think we had 1 or 2 meetings to narrow it down, and we picked a handful of them. Because you only can do so much as a group. So,
Understood.
I mean, that would be kind of my recommendation, that maybe that's what you want to do. And then, or if those are the ideas, reading the minutes you want to bring forward, we can bring that forward to kind of narrow it down. I mean, that's just a suggestion.
Okay, what I was getting at, and then I'll open this up to the group, is those 4 or 5 items I think are on the list and they should stay there. But sometimes the limitation with those is either city staff or there's resources that we don't have available right now. There are other things that people can and hopefully will be working on in 2023 that, we can start to parse out and say who wants to take the lead on this project. Because you said earlier, we can't talk about it until it gets on the agenda. So under future agenda items, I want to, and I don't know if it's possible to just have a running list and say, these are all important things.
We'll just bring back future sustainable projects for a future agenda now.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion on that approach or concerns, questions? Any other things that we should be looking forward to on the agenda for the December meeting?
Clean air ordinance.
And we will definitely have the clean air ordinance on it because we tabled it, so it kind of has to come back, doesn't it?
Yep, well, it's tabled, but
It
like,
doesn't need to go under future agenda, it'll automatically go to
oh, it doesn't, okay.
I would like to see some salt education at our December meeting, since that's the time of year that we do a lot of that.
And specifically road salt and,
No, I think road salt, I think we discuss it, but De Pere does a very good job with road salt, so I think it's more private homeowner salt education or just discussion.
yep,
And businesses too, I would add.
Just clarification, so are you, I mean, because there's a group that actually someone new, so it's called
Saltwise.
Saltwise. So are you looking for, I'm just trying to think, I don't know if I can get her here, but she's been with our community because I'll say we're leading, to toot our horn a little bit, leading the industry, what we do for our operations on the streets, but she's been going all over the state and she was invited nationally out to Colorado, how she's leading the charge. Are you looking at getting information from her, potentially?
You
having
are
her-
talking about, I know her name. I know
Allison?
her. Yeah, Allison, yes.
Yep.
I think she would be good. I think maybe just pushing more of that salt-wise stuff in our community would be good, because, I mean, I just saw her the other day. So, I mean, I don't know if her coming in to speak would be helpful, maybe if it was like a event, you know what I mean? More than just like coming to speak to us. But I think I don't know if it's just making sure we're posting on social media about the importance of your salt use and things like that. Something.
does that give you enough to?
Yeah, I mean, I think what I'll do is we'll kind of talk about what we do, things I've learned from Allison,
Yeah.
and then kind of share with the group. I can definitely see if she's available to present to the group, because 2 months out she may be available, and invite her in, if that's acceptable. So then, basically we can talk about, that, or I can just build on, what we do internally and then stuff we know, because you're right. I mean, for example, there's information out there, how much salt to put in your own sidewalk, type of a thing. So
Using
I got enough to
alternatives
put it
to
on.
salt, yep.
Okay. And again, just for clarity, we're asking for future agenda items now. If you think of anything that comes up in the next 6 weeks or so, as long as there's time to get it on the next agenda, you can send an email to either Scott or Betty or both, and that's another way to add something to the agenda. So if something occurs to you, great idea, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, Renee.
At one point, but I think it was pre-pandemic, we had talked about doing a workshop around energy efficiency with what group was that?
Solar.
No, it was the kind of energy efficiency group in Wisconsin. Gosh, I forget their name now. Wisconsin Energy.
Was that through WPS?
Yes,
And that
was
was
through
canceled because of that. We did
of
talk
COVID.
about it. Okay.
I was thinking it would be a good year for that. I mean,
Okay.
fuel prices are very high, so I think there would be a lot of interest.
I can see if there's any programs out there to bring back. Yep. Yeah, because they were going to have it and COVID hit because we had yep.
Okay, thanks for those suggestions. Like I said, keep them coming. I would entertain
One more thing.
almost.
No, what I just wanted for the new members, the agenda, normally Betty and I are putting it together like a week before the meeting, scheduled meeting. So it's very, very imperative that we get it by then, because sometimes if it needs a lot of research, if we got it like the Wednesday before, it's tough to get on. So just kind of let you folks know. Sometimes if it's like a Wednesday or Thursday, we may not be able to get it on, but if it's, well before that, we can definitely, get on, or we can let you know this may take a little bit of research or whatever else, but, we just need that timing.
Thanks for that. Go ahead.
Another point, that list from the DNR that we talked about earlier, if you go through that list with the resource requirements or the action requirements to allow it to happen. I'm just thinking about this quickly. It's going to be either investment of resources, people's time, or consultants' time, and or creating people's behavior change, culture change in your community, and starting to recognize, because those are key points that we're trying to measure our community by, trying to recognize what all that's going to take. And in some cases, as Renee was talking about, there might be only 10 of those that really need ordinance changes. And if there are 10 of them that need ordinance changes, and maybe this many more that take real cash investment resources, like if you're going to have electric vehicles in your city, to get points, you've got to have them. The next time those cars come up, someone's got to make the decision to buy electric versus something else. It's just getting our plan out there and knowing what's involved in that, so that every time we come up against something, let's have a new list, and then we go through same old. That's kind of what I'm seeing here.
Understood.
And we've got to get an understanding that there's certain things we know what it's going to take us to do it, and then go ahead and plan on those happening on whatever schedule the resources of the city staff can do and the resources of the community vis-a-vis money. But there's been a lot of money that flowed into this community from the federal government and the state government in the last couple of years from the COVID monies. And has any of that been put to work in sustainability? Put your money where your mouth is. It's that kind of thing. So somehow we've got to get on the council and the mayor's mind that this is happening and these things are going to be needed.
Yep.
And I'm not sure how to do that exactly, but I think we really need to spend some time and effort doing that as a commission.
Okay, and I'd like to address that a little bit, because we did just have a budget study session. So the city staff and the department chairs are keenly aware of a lot of these things that we're talking about. And I think the difference is, like, we're going to get a couple of police squad cars that are electric vehicles. They have a standing budget. I mean, they know they're going to be spending money. And so they're trying to do as many of these things as they can with the resources that they have. I think it's us speaking with a clear voice and saying, as a commission, we see all the things that you're doing there, as many as we can understand and take in. Now, in addition, we also need to be working on X, Y, Z. Because I think the department managers are working for, sustainability and clean energy, and they're doing a lot of that stuff.
And we're 20% of the way in terms of the points and the state's score, and we don't expect to get there next year.
Correct.
But
we need to be making progress.
Keep chipping away at it and have a plan to do that.
Can we?
I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh, can we request that the mayor come and present some of the initiatives that they're working on in the budget, or is there a way to get like kind of a summary of sustainability initiatives that folks have incorporated within their departments? Or
I think so, but go ahead, Scott, you first.
Well, yes. Well, I mean, as far as one of the things I want to answer your question in a long way, because I want to add to Alderperson Quigley, the focus of the commission is really not the city's operation, but the community as a whole. We have shared internally to this commission initiatives we've done in the past for sustainability, and it's always a directive from the mayor and the city administrator when we're putting our budgets for the operations that we're looking at sustainable items. Like, Renee was requesting, what are some of the items? I know the police are looking at squad cars, because right now it's a workshop. The budget has not officially been approved. It goes to public hearing on November 15th. But what I heard, because I sat through the workshop, the actual police department's got, when they replace their fleet, they're looking at sustainable vehicles, the EV. I got some vehicles in public works, and I believe in parks we're looking at. It's going to be a kind of hybrid slash EV. And what I mean about it, it's not going to be just a hybrid where you get it, where the hybrid would be potentially, it's electric. You still got to charge it, but if you need the energy because of the operations, it'll kick in the gas. That's, it's more sustainable than all fuel, but it's not fully electric. Some of our fleet vehicles for administrative, I have in my budget that the council's looking at moving forward of getting the EV. The challenge, what you heard, and actually I think Alderperson Gash, you've been working on, because we had a presentation at our Board of Public Works last night, EV charging stations. There's a lot of people have, the EV vehicles that actually, they're charging them at home. They set it up in order to put what I've learned about EV stations, for EV vehicles, if you plug it into that plug right there, you get 5 miles an hour. If you wire it at home to like a dryer vent, you can get up to 20, 25. And there's fast charging, and I believe the only fast charging unit we have in the county is at Fred Meyer. And the only reason I know this because my daughter and her husband have a Tesla. So they're limited. And talk about planning EV stations. So the presentation we had last night, it won't happen in 2023, but we're looking at, where we can do EV stations, for example, throughout the downtown. And we don't have a plan yet because we're working on a parking study plan, which will bring that into the mix. But we got in a discussion last night. I brought up to the council as part of my budget. If I'm getting EV vehicles for the MSC, municipal service centers where our operations are, I got to have a way to plug them in. So we're looking at, I got in the budget right now, if it gets approved, to wire facilities on our operations. So when the EV vehicles come, we can plug them in. The street lights, for example, we're continuing to get rid of the halogen type lights and going with the LEDs. Every year we're putting in the budget, that. We're still working on our existing buildings. For example, we're not fully LED internally and outside, so that's money in the budget we continue to process. So those are some of the operations, what I listened through the budget session, that the city has planned right now for 2023 moving forward. Potential, if it gets approved, we could have them. But the biggest step, we're moving into the EV, fully electric vehicle direction.
Yeah.
And then I would like to address one other thing that Commissioner Lawton mentioned, which is the ARPA money, which was not included in this budget cycle. Every year when we do budgeting, department heads come forward and they say, I need this, this, and this, and some things make the cut and other things don't. So after this budget, after the public hearing, there is an intention to go back through a second time and say the things that either were on the cutting room floor or that we said no to the first time around. So again, I would love to have some things at that ARPA work group and say, this is what the Sustainability Commission wants. And I may talk to one or several of you and say, call your council members, because if you live in different areas, throughout the city, there's 8 of us on the council. And so if I say it and I'm the only one there, I might not do it. I know there is support on the council. I just, because we didn't vote on the last thing, I can't say for sure what kind of level of support and what it is we're asking for. But I can make a very specific proposal, yes.
It was helpful to hear Mr. Thorson give us this update on what's going on in budgeting, because I had no idea.
Okay, and I
that
appreciate
you were
that.
making those, and that's staff making those decisions and making those analysis, et cetera, et cetera. That's staff time that was done there, and that's wonderful. That's the kind of thing that's needed.
Actually, I mean, the issue with EV stations is the funding that I learned last night. For example, one of the charging stations they're proposing, it's $31,000. Then we still have to, get the power to it. So that could be an example that, you may want it for, as the commissioners want to reach out to Alderperson Quigley, this may be one of the things you might want to look at, that maybe we should look at the funding, because there are proposals. I know Renee's working for the gentleman who was here last night. It's not in the budget, but they could use some of that ARPA, because the ARPA money does not have to be spent in 2023. It's, I think, 2024, but we want to commit, the council needs to commit that money to certain projects, and EV stations could be a possibility if that's what the commission wanted to do.
So now I think we're near the end of the agenda. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
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 All those opposed, and we are adjourned. Thank you very much.